One of the great things about the scientific method is that it's embedded with a self-correcting engine. Science always continues to improve because it can examine itself, it reviews and refines its flaws. Very few things are certain in the world, but we can always be sure that the science of tomorrow will be better than today. Science can be used for both good and evil. Whoever controls this mechanism determines how this incredible force is used. So we need to ask, who controls it? Science today is being perverted by a small minority. While most scientists are employed by the major universities, a group of privately paid intellectuals are trying to change and obscure the results of professional scientists by spinning, twisting, questioning, and undermining their results. Most of this disinformation comes from what are referred to as front groups. A front group is an organization that claims to represent one agenda, while in reality, it serves some other party or interest whose sponsorship is hidden or rarely mentioned. For instance, in 1953, Dr. Winder released a report showing that there was a definitive link between smoking cigarettes and cancer. The tobacco industry went on the offensive by hiring the public relations company Hill & Knowlton. The PR firm immediately created the front group, Tobacco Institute Research Committee. They released a full-page promotion in more than 400 newspapers aimed at over 43 million Americans. As a 1993 lawsuit, the state of Mississippi versus the tobacco cartel, it states, "There was a coordinated, industry-wide strategy designed actively to mislead and confuse the public about the true dangers associated with smoking cigarettes. Rather than work for the good of the public health as it had promised and sponsor independent research, the tobacco companies and consultants, acting through the Tobacco Trade Association, refused, undermined, and neutralized information coming from the scientific and medical community." Front groups hire scientists that are willing to obscure the truth. Unlike regular scientists, they do not publish peer-reviewed papers. Their views reflect their constituents, and unlike regular scientists, their main goal is to alter public opinion. Front groups create easy-to-read reports that are then injected into the media or political campaigns. They are nothing more than paid propagandists, hired by the private sector and used to confuse the public. Some of the most powerful front groups today are funded by the public relations firm Berman & Company. Much of their backing comes from the 30,000 U.S. restaurants and tavern operators that they represent. One of Berman's biggest front groups is the Center for Consumer Freedom. They argue that obesity in the U.S. is overhyped, that menu labeling is anti-freedom. They fight against groups such as Mothers Against Drunk Driving by calling them a neo-prohibitionist group. Many employees that are paid minimum wage work for the food industry, so Berman & Company and its affiliates help pay for front groups such as the Employee Policy Institute, MinimumWage.com, and LivingWage.com, three groups that oppose minimum wage increases. Other groups they pay for is the Center for Union Facts, which fights union rights. With money from the meat industry, they've created the website PETAKillsAnimals.com by opposing any kind of animal rights, including experimentation. These groups tend to quote each other's research or use data from other fronts or from the public relations industry. What most people don't seem to understand is that front groups are ever present. We can find them in our newspapers and watch our politicians and pundits quote them at length. They are a hidden part of our everyday reality, quietly sneaking into our consciousness and transforming the way we think and perceive the world around us. And that is their genius. If someone was told that cigarettes don't actually cause cancer, and then they were told that the source of the information is a group funded by the tobacco industry, they would automatically question the data. They would assume it was biased, manipulated, or just straight out lies. Instead, the conclusion of these groups are reported unquestioned every day. It's ironic that scientists both here and around the world have come to the consensus that global warming, in fact, is a reality, one that is being heavily influenced by humans. Much of the doubt today is created by industry-funded front groups. One of the first was Global Climate Coalition, who operated out of the National Association of Manufacturers, a lobbyist group for industrial corporations. Global Climate Coalition received most of its funding from chemical and energy companies along with other public relation firms such as Berman & Company. The coalition wrote papers doubting and criticizing global warming, while dishing out reports to journalists, lobbying Congress. They even distributed hundreds of videos to news outlets claiming that global warming would help farming communities and help feed the poor around the world. By 2002, the group had been exposed as an industry-funded front group. But other front groups have popped up in their place, groups such as Friends of Science Society, Frontier of Freedom, Greening Earth Society, Institute of Public Affairs, Science and Environmental Policy Project, George C. Marshall Institute, and Scientific Alliance. All of them claim to be friends of the environment. In fact, their very names seem to be friendly to environmental causes. But these groups are funded by the energy and chemical industry. At the same time, they are quoted by think tanks such as the Cato Institute, American Enterprise Institute, Citizens for a Sound Economy, and the Adam Smith Institute. Because most people have never heard of these groups, there tends to be blowback, such as when academic or government institution starts quoting them as real science. And this is exactly the point. These groups, with their millions, are able to influence the media, lobby Congress, obscure the real results of the scientific community, and thereby change public opinion. The media uncritically dispenses junk science in fear of groups like Accuracy in the Media. They are another industry-funded front, paid for by companies such as Chevron, Exxon, Getty Oil, and IBM. Accuracy in the Media details what they say is bias in the media. Their information is then infused into think tanks, newspapers, talk radio, and other fronts. Because the media fears the accusation of bias, they tend to report both sides of the issue, no matter how crazy, ridiculous, and debunked the information might be. Real scientists have been marginalized, partly because they have trouble expressing their complex ideas to the media, while front groups' existence depends on their ability to take incomprehensible ideas and turn them into easy-to-understand soundbites for the public. These soundbites then enter into what is called an echo chamber. This is when news outlets begin to naively report soundbites that move like a virus through the news outlets. Before you know it, every pundit is saying the same thing. Front groups are not some small facet of American life. There are hundreds of these groups receiving billions from major corporations. They fight for pharmaceutical companies, law firms, the coal industry, farming, and chemical manufacturers. All these groups work in a vast network, each one supporting the other. This is all done to protect private interests, no matter how dangerous and undemocratic, no matter how many people die, all in the name of profits. The whole reason for science is the inquiry into how the world functions, peeling back unknown layers of the universe's complexity to reveal the beauty hidden underneath. If the public is misinformed and misdirected, then they cannot make conscious and informed decisions about how they live. Science and technology are powerful engines. They can make our lives better or worse. Whoever controls this massive power has the ability to affect entire societies. But at the moment, these instruments are being dominated and manipulated by an unseen army of paid charlatans. They are the ones who control our future. They are the ones who will decide our fate, for better or worse.